West Bengal elections. How Didi won personality battle. On Sunday afternoon, without a wheelchair for the first time in few weeks, it was Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee who spoke to the people of the state as the victor. What are the factors that led to the result? For the BJP, May 2 was to be a crowning moment when they would win West Bengal. An election campaign that lasted for over a month saw the presence of battle of central ministers including Home Minister Amit Shah and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But on Sunday afternoon, without a wheelchair for the first time in few weeks, it was Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee who spoke to the people of the state as the victor. What are the factors that led to the result? Welfare. So welfare web. 3 years after a huge win in the 2000 elections, the 2019 Lok Sabha elections were a wake-up call for the Trinamool Congress. The BJP won 18 of 40 seats and 40% of the vote. It was then that time that Trinamool doubled on its already extensive welfare web for the poor, bringing in Duare Sarkar and Didi Ke Bole, a campaigning where complaints could be made to be centralized phone number. Over the last 1 decade, the Trinamool had instituted several schemes such as Rupasri, Kanyasri, Sabut Sathi that saw monetary benefits for the underprivileged. The BJP framed these schemes as centers of corruption by Trinamool leaders. On the ground, two things were evident. First, the Trinamool had focused on making the schemes more accessible to people with Duare Sarkar and Didi Ki Bolo, also giving the party information on where they were going wrong. For instance, Trinamool leader said one of the most common complaint was the lack of SC certificates in some areas, which were then freely distributed. Second, the central focus of many of these schemes were women, a constituency that has stayed loyal to Mamata Banerjee. Across districts, even if men of a household were voting for the BJP, many women of the same household were staying with Mamata. Battle of personalities. As the campaigning progressed, the elections devolved into a battle of personalities. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee versus Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and to an extent Home Minister Amit Shah. This ended up shooting the Trinamool, for it is clear that where there was anger on the ground against local level violence and petty corruption, this was against the Trinamool and not against Mamata herself. She retained her popularity as Bengal's matriarch, with people blaming the local party cadres for their trouble. The party then designed its campaigning around the personality of Mamata Banerjee, the street fighter, wheelchair bound but still fighting. The BJP too made her the centerpiece of its attack, with the Prime Minister Didi Didi remark become a leitmotif in the elections. But this was no 2019, and people on the ground were aware that Modi was not on the ballot for the Chief Minister of West Bengal. On the ground, while Modi was not unpopular, he was not at the forefront of conversations and would only be talked about when a question about him was asked. And the taunt or the focused criticism of Mamata was not received well. Politics of polarization. Religious polarization was at the center of the campaigning, although while the BJP accused the Trinamool of Muslim appeasement and used the slogan Jai Sri Ram almost as a political slogan, Mamata and Trinamool had to walk a tightrope, even reciting the Chandipat during the campaigning. Eventually, the polarization seemed to work for one side better than the other. Faced with the prospect of the BJP coming to power, the Muslim community, even in the strongholds of the Congress and the left, chose to side with the Trinamool. On the other hand, the BJP set itself as the Everest-like target of winning Bengal without the close to 30% Muslim. This required extreme high level of polarization among Hindus, which did not happen. Mamata's outreach and her decision not to overtly fall into the religious binary paid off, with the Trinamool increasing its vote share from 2019 and widening the gap with the BJP, whose share fell. Organizational difference. The run-up to the campaigning was headlined by high-profile shifts from Trinamool to the BJP, from Minister Subhendu Adhikari and Rajiv Banerjee to powerful local leaders like Jitendra Tiwari from Asansol. While this was broadly read as a shifting of the political sands, it allowed Mamata to create a siege mentally around herself and her party. Much of the imaging became of Mamata fighting over the BJP's resources by its herself. The narrative lending itself to the inside-outside trope, as the Chief Minister called the BJP bargis, plunderers. At the ground level, Trinamool leaders fought the elections with its back to the wall, with many desperate to show those that left their place. The BJP, on their other hand, with the new entrants, uncharacteristically appeared ideologically hollow. Differences over seat distribution emerged among the old guard of the BJP. Those from the left had joined the party only to defeat the Trinamool and new entrants from the Trinamool itself. In fact, while the BJP would argue that it would not have had the organizational strength to take on the Trinamool if the inductions were not made, that made for a contradiction on the ground. For a party that was pitching itself against the Trinamool as non-violent and non-corrupt, many of its candidates inducted from the Trinamool faced their own local allegations of corruption and violence. Little to offer from BJP. The BJP campaigning fundamentally hinged on two factors: anti incumbency and alleged Muslim appeasement, and therefore religious polarization. Wherever the conversation in constituencies turned local, to MLAs, to organizations, to the identification of the Chief Minister or the alternatives the BJP was providing, the BJP lost the argument. While the BJP had a manifesto, not one promise of the manifesto was invested in as part of a sustained campaigning pitch as an alternative to the Trinamool's welfare schemes. With the central leadership taking ownership of the campaigning and no clarity on which the lieutenants Suvendu Adhikari or Mukul Roy or Dilip Ghosh or anyone else would be chief ministerial candidate, and there was no answer to the question of who else but Mamata. Despite its publicity rally flickers, the BJP was not able to convince voters that it would win. So even in places where Trinamool candidate or the party itself was unpopular, with people every fearful of the local hooliganism, the safer choice was to stay with the Trinamool. The party's organization stood intact. Thank you.